What's up, everybody? Today I want to talk to you about the 5 myths you might have heard or might be telling yourself on why you cannot learn how to code, or why coding is going to be a little bit too difficult for you. Alright, so myth number 1. You need to be a genius, or you have to have a genius level IQ in order to be a coder. Well, that's false. You don't need to be a genius. Yes, you'll find there's geniuses out there who are coders who create amazing applications and pieces of software. But the reality is you don't need to be a genius in order to learn how to code. And there's going to be a lot of people out there who are really good coders and create amazing applications or websites or whatever who aren't geniuses. They just put in the time and the effort. And there's actually a quote that I like to say all the time, and that's that talent is overrated. Hard work will beat talent when talent doesn't work hard. And pretty much what this means is that, you might have a talented athlete, or you might have a talented writer or a talented coder, but if they're not putting in the effort and they're not putting in the hours, that's going to be wasted talent. Now, if you're someone who's going to sit there for hours every single day, you're going to study the syntax of the coding language you want to learn, you're going to apply it on a daily basis, you're going to put in the effort. And I can pretty much guarantee you that you're going to be a really good coder in time. So we could take myth number 1 straight off the table, and that's you don't need to be a genius or have a genius level IQ to become a coder. Alright, so now myth number 2. It takes too long in order to learn how to code. And the first thing I want to say about that is that anything worthwhile is going to take time. And learning to code is something that's not going to happen overnight. You're going to have to put in the effort. You're going to have to put in the hours. You're going to have to dedicate yourself day in and day out in order to learn how to code if you want to do it in a short time frame. And I don't mean that you can learn how to code overnight or over a weekend or within a week or a month. But you could definitely learn the syntax language or the basics if you put in the time. So if you're putting in just 10 minutes a day, then it's going to take you a little bit longer in order to learn. But if you're putting in an hour, you're going to be able to learn it that much faster. Now, if you're putting in 2, 3, or 4 hours, now you're just speeding up the process. But make sure you separate it so that way you're not overwhelming yourself within a short time frame. Now, if you want to become a master coder, that could take 5 to 10 years. And that's pretty much true for anything you try to pursue in life, whether it's coding or whether it's becoming a pianist or a violinist or any type of skill that's difficult that you're trying to master. It takes time. So just put in the effort. Don't think it's going to take you 5 years to learn code. Realize you can get started today, and if you're putting in the hours, by next month you're going to be that much better. 2 hours a day times 30 days, that's 60 hours in a month. And depending on the coding language, you might be able to have the basics pretty much covered within that time frame. Obviously, every coding language is a little bit different. Some are easier than others, but it all comes down to if you're putting in the time, you'll get there. So that takes myth number 2 off the table as well. It doesn't have to take you forever to learn how to code. Alright, so now on to myth number 3. You have to be a math whiz in order to be a coder. And in some people's minds, this makes perfect sense because in some programming languages or in most dynamic coding languages, you're going to find there's going to be a lot of similarities with algebra, or at least the basics of algebra. So having an understanding of algebra might be beneficial and might be helpful, but you don't need to be a master mathematician in order to be a coder. Yes, math is part of code, but there's a lot of people who learn how to code that aren't really that great at math. And coding is more than just math. It's about logic. It's about having a problem that you're looking to solve and figuring out how to get that done. Being able to map out your idea and then using the syntax of the coding language that you're working with in order to get that done. So yes, math might play a role, but it's not the most important. So we could take that myth off the table as well. Alright, so now myth number 4. People hear this all the time, or people ask this question all the time. Is it too late for me to learn how to code? Or they're telling themselves, it's too late for me. I'm too old, or whatever the case may be. And you hear this from people, whether they're 20 years old, 30 years old, 40 years old, 50, 60 years old. It doesn't matter. People always doubt their ability as they get older. But the reality is, it's never too late. As long as you have the capacity to learn, the desire to learn, you're going to be able to learn it. Again, it all comes down to how much you really want it. What is your reason why? And are you going to put in the time that it takes in order to learn how to code? And that's where people kind of get confused because they say, you know what? I'm 30, 40 years old. I have kids and I have another job that I'm working with, and I have a life, and I don't think I have the time, or maybe I should have done this when I was 15 years old when I had no responsibilities. And it's true, as you get older, there's more responsibilities you might have. They might limit the amount of time you can put into it, but we all make a choice. Are we going to put in an hour in the morning instead of watching TV? Are we going to put in an hour in the middle of the day instead of taking an hour's lunch, meaning you're going to learn while you're eating? Or you're going to put in an hour towards the evening instead of watching that show? Again, if you have the desire, if you have the motivation, and if you choose that this is something you really want to do, age is just a number. It's never too late as long as you have the capacity to learn. And myth number 5, it's too expensive to learn how to code. I need a fancy computer, I need a triple monitor setup, I need to go to one of those expensive boot camps, I have to pay for online courses. There's so many different things that I'm gonna have to spend money on if I want to learn how to code. Well, the reality is, it's actually not that expensive. The most expensive item that you're gonna need is gonna be a computer, and you most likely already have that. Now, you don't need to have a workstation grade computer. You don't have to have a triple monitor setup. You don't have to have a computer with 64 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM and 2 terabyte M.2 SSD drive. You don't need to have a fancy computer. What you need is a computer that turns on and that is relatively new. It could be within the past few years. And a matter of fact, I use computers today that I have back from 2011, and they still work for coding. They're not the most powerful computers. They don't have the fastest processors. They don't have the fastest graphics cards, but they get the job done. Coding is generally not that resource intensive. Now, of course, if you're using some complex data mining schemes or algorithms or things of that nature, that's different. But if you're developing website with HTML, CSS, JavaScript, jQuery, PHP, and MySQL, then virtually any computer will get the job done. So don't think for a moment that you have to go out there and spend a few $1,000s in order to get a computer in order to learn how to code. And you don't have to go to a fancy boot camp. You can learn how to code for free online. YouTube is a great place to learn because there's a bunch of different channels that show you different coding languages. And there's a bunch of other websites online that you could use in order to learn how to code for free. So you could take myth number 5 off the table. Learning to code is not expensive. All right, so to recap, we have the 5 myths about learning to code and why they're just myths. Myth number 1, you need to be a genius in order to learn code. Not true. Myth number 2, it takes too long to learn how to code. And yes, it takes a long time to become a master coder, but you can learn the syntax of a coding language really fast, as long as you're putting in the time and the effort to learn it. Myth number 3, you have to be a math whiz in order to learn code. And the reality is you don't need to be a math whiz. Being good at math won't hurt, but coding is more than just math. It's also the logic and your ability to solve problems. Myth number 4, it's too late for me to learn how to code. I'm too old to learn how to code. That's the furthest thing from the truth. You have some people that learn when they're 13 years old, and you have others who learn while they're in college, and you have others who learn later on in life, whether it's 30, 40, 50, or 60. As long as you have the capacity to learn, you can learn how to code. And myth number 5, it's too expensive to learn how to code. And that myth is completely false. Any computer will do. Learning to code you can do for free online. There's a bunch of videos and a bunch of websites that will give you the fundamentals and even some advanced tutorials on how to learn code. All right, so hopefully you found this video helpful. I just wanted to talk to you about the 5 myths of coding that you should just simply ignore. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, smash that notification bell, leave a comment down below, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.